Hey everyone, in front of the camera here, I have the new for 2017 LionSteel Roundhead Barlow. This is through LionSteel and sold at collectorknives.net. I will put a link down in the description if you want to pick one of these up. What this essentially is a slip joint, but using modern materials and a little bit of modern machining as well, but still has a lot of that classic slip joint style and actually pretty decent walk and talk as well, and has a half stop, and overall looks like that classic Barlow design, but we have modern materials here and a little bit more modern construction compared to stuff like Case, Queen, and GEC. If you listen to the talk that I had with Christian from Nuts for Knives, we were talking about different modern companies trying to get into traditional pocket knives to compete with companies like Great Eastern Cutlery, Queen, and Case. And as we talked about, the Benchmade came out with their was it Proper, which although used some slip joint kind of had a slip joint style, it wasn't received well from a lot of traditional knife collectors because the walk and talk and the way that it had like kind of a strange half stop as well, but just the overall design of that was not well received with a lot of people who were big collectors of traditionals. This, however, I think is a great competitor for a lot of Great Eastern Cutlery knives because this is well constructed. This does have good walk and talk, and this does have the benefit of having modern materials such as M390 steel, titanium bolsters, and titanium liners. So none of this, there's still a stainless steel back spring, but essentially none of this should rust. I mean, M390 is very corrosion resistant, so you shouldn't have any kind of problems that you would with 1095, and it's also should hold an edge for quite a long time. The titanium bolsters mean that you won't have any kind of patina or any of the issues you normally have with brass or even 1095 bolsters. The liners also are titanium and the back spring is stainless steel. I'm not sure exactly what type of stainless steel, but it should hold up pretty well. So when these were announced initially through Collector Knives, they actually took kind of a while to come out, and I'm sure that it was partly LionSteel was trying to make sure they were going to get this right, and I think they did. Because overall this is really well done. It's not it's not quite a GEC, but it's up there. It's a little bit different in my mind because you're getting something that GEC doesn't offer, and that's using these modern materials. But it is great, and it's also very lightweight. As a comparison, I'm going to compare it to, I think, what it's closest to, which is the number 77 Barlow by GEC. Let's get an idea. So 2.08 ounces, number 77 Barlow, weighs in at 2.57 ounces. So yeah, it's a little bit lighter. Not a ton lighter, but it's definitely noticeable when you pick up the Roundhead versus the 77. And just there, again, give you a size comparison. It's pretty much exactly the same length of the 77 Barlow. The bolsters are actually very similar in length as well. Didn't notice that at first. This, of course, is a sheep's foot Barlow, GEC 77. So the blade's a little different, but you can tell overall the frame is very similar. They're about the same overall width and handle. Back spring is probably a little bit wider on the GEC. But yeah, if you want a size comparison, yeah, it's very similar to a 77 Barlow. So it is bigger than a number 15 pattern by GEC. So a medium-sized Barlow knife. And this one is in Santos wood. They had a few different other options available. The Santos wood is the cheapest of them, coming in at $100. They had carbon fiber, that's all sold out. They still have Stag, which comes in at $125. ram's horn, which comes in 117, and abalone, which comes in 185. Now let's consider the price here for a second. We have $100 for titanium bolsters, titanium liners, M390 steel, and a nicely finished wood covers here for $100. A lot of 77 Barlows, or a lot of GECs sell around maybe 90, 80 to 100, depending on, and some in the Northfield trim are over 100. So that's not bad at all. That's this is very reasonably priced, and to be honest, $100 for something with M390 steel and these and all the titanium in this, that's actually a really good deal. And of course, yeah, if you jump up into different handle covers, it does get more expensive. You will notice that this differs from a traditional Barlow pattern in the fact that this is not pin construction like GEC does. These are actually T6 Torx bits. So some people don't like the idea because you look at this and this is not a completely smooth finished bolster. You have those T6 screws exposed. Not a big deal. If you want to see what this knife is like if you disassemble it, Jeff Bailey over on YouTube has a video of him taking off the covers and the bolsters, and you will realize that the pin that holds in, or the pivot pin that holds in the blade, is actually underneath this. So unlike a normal traditional where it's kind of flush mounted in there, you can't even really see where the pivot pin is in this 77. The pivot pin is underneath these bolsters, so I think you can take off the bolsters, you can take off the covers, but I don't think you can do any more disassembly past that, at least from what I saw when he took his apart, which is actually kind of neat because I think someone already did aftermarket covers for this. So that's one of the advantages of this, is you can take these Torx screws off and put different covers on. Which is pretty neat because doing that on a normal traditional that's pinned is going to be much more difficult. So let's take a look at this. Again, walk and talk is great. It doesn't have the typical pull of a 77 Barlow, which would probably be around a 7 or 8. This is more of a 5.5 to a 6 pull. But you hear that, that's still pretty decent walk and talk, which is impressive for a company, LionSteel, that doesn't really make a lot of traditionals. This might be their, I think they've made traditional style knives, but I don't know if they made anything close to this kind of Barlow style slip joint before in the past. But yeah, let's take a look at that blade. Classic spear point Barlow satin finish blade. A lot of Barlows that were originally designed were spear point blades, so this is following that tradition. I think he called this the Euro Barlow when Mike Latham came out with this. So you have the LionSteel mark, Italy, CK edition, and over here we have, you can see it, M390. Nothing on this side of the blade. You actually have double nail nicks too. So you have a nail nick on this side as well as this side, which you don't need because you can actually pinch this open pretty well, which is also a really nice feature of this. If you don't like using nail nicks, you can still pinch this open. And you don't need the easy open notch to do it. It does have a little kick, like most traditionals here, which is interesting because I think it actually hits up against the stop pin, which is inside the knife, which is another feature that is different from a traditional. As you can see on this number 77 Barlow here, we have the kick here, which is what prevents the blade from hitting up against the back spring when closed. And essentially, if you want to, you can adjust the kick if you want the blade sitting lower in the handle, and that's how these traditionals work. Now, there's no stop pin or anything in this, but this is a little different because they did actually add that stop pin, which I think will be I think will work pretty well. I mean, it still has a good walk and talk even with that stop pin in there. Yeah, they both sound pretty good. And this is from a company that's not focusing on traditional style slip joints. Bolsters are well done. Again, titanium, so they're a little bit, you know, more that gray matte finish than the shiny steel bolsters on the GEC. Everything as far as fit and finish is done very well. There's a little gap between the bolsters and the covers here, but I think that's just the way the design was, because it looks like it's exactly the same way on the same side. So you don't have that as smooth transition as you would in a GEC. But overall, this is really done well. The back spring is kind of crowned off, you know, that typical rounding that LionSteel does with a lot of their other knives. So it looks really nice. There's actually some rounding on the spine of the blade before you get to the front here, where you get the swedge. Looks like even the titanium liners are actually rounded too, which is a nice touch. So yeah, when you run your fingers back here, it's not that smooth transition that you have with a GEC, but it's not harsh either because everything's rounded off. So fit and finish is really good. I really like that Santos wood. Another neat thing about this is I'm not sure if he's still shipping them with this, but when I got this, I was one of the first ones to get one of these. I was on the early reserve. He was shipping it with these collector knives pouches, and this is I think European leather he had made specially for these knives. It differs from his normal pocket slips that he ships that you can choose to buy when you buy his knives. He actually included this at no extra charge when shipping out the Roundhead. They're about the same thickness in leather, but this one, not only does it have a nicer texture, it's got a nicer smell to it, I think. It's just a nicer, it's a lot nicer leather, I would say, and I think it really fits well with this knife. Not sure if he's still shipping them off, but it was a nice little extra he included there. And if you can't get one of these, it still works with his normal collector knives pocket slips. So if you don't like the Santos wood, you can go for one of the other options, the abalone stag ram's horn. Unfortunately, no more carbon fiber. I think that once some people saw videos on how good this was, people who don't necessarily like the natural materials, but they like that modern carbon fiber, they jumped on that. So those are all gone. Hopefully, there's more of these coming in the future, because this is a really nice pattern, really well done. I mean, LionSteel does some great work, and if there was really going to be any other modern company competing against some of these traditional companies, LionSteel was definitely going to be the one to do it, because they have some great fit and finish, and this just proves it. Hopefully he keeps making runs of these. Maybe there'll be even more variety of natural materials. This was originally supposed to be Coco Bolo, but I think the Santos wood turned out really well. And I really like the fact that this is a very nice traditional knife that I have that I don't have to worry about. Well, still have to worry a little. I mean, any steel will rust, but there's a lot less worry about rust and patina on this blade. So there you go. Overall, very impressed. LionSteel did a great job. And so I would say if they keep making these and keep making runs of these, GEC will have some competition. So that's the LionSteel Roundhead, available at collectorknives.net. Any questions or comments, leave them down in the comments. Like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.